Hey guys, what's going on? It's Foxy here. Today we're going to look at a relatively new free-to-play World War II shooter by the name of Enlisted. It was originally released back in March of 2021 for the PC as well as the PS5 and Xbox Series X/S. However, I'll be looking at the PS4 and Xbox One version of the game that came out in early October of 2021. So, the very first thing I noticed when I started playing, well, not even that, just by scrolling through the menus before I even played one match, was that I could tell right off the bat that this game was definitely optimized for the PC first instead of consoles. Using the analog stick as basically a mouse for the menus made me a little worried that the devs possibly lazily ported this game to consoles just to shut up console gamers who may have wanted this game. Was that the case? I wouldn't say so. They seem to have done a decent job with the console editions of the game. You'll notice there's different campaigns that you can play on, which I thought was really cool because each campaign features different armies. So, for example, the campaign I mostly played on was Invasion of Normandy, where you had the Americans and the Brits fight against Nazi Germany and the Italians. There are other campaigns in the game featuring different armies, each with their own weapons, and they play on different maps. It's a really interesting idea, and what's even more interesting to me is that your rank progression doesn't carry over from campaign to campaign. So if you are playing on, say, Normandy's campaign, your rank progression is separate depending on which force you play on. So while I might be rank 10 on the Axis armies, I might only be rank 3 or 4 on the Allies. You'll notice towards the left of the menu I have a bunch of squads. Now these squads you'll unlock the more you progress in your ranks, each having their own advantages and disadvantages. You can customize each soldier in the squad as well as whatever weapon and equipment they are allowed to carry, like a sniper squad can't have a machine gun or a flamethrower, which obviously makes perfect sense. I'm not going to go deep into these menus because it'll take all day, but let me just say that there's a ton of stuff you can mess around with, and you might find yourself spending, 10 to 20 minutes in these menus just playing around with everything that you're given. It can be overwhelming at first, to be honest. I really didn't understand how this all worked until maybe like 3 hours into the game, so don't be discouraged if you get a little confused. But for now, let's talk about the graphics. While it's not winning any awards for stellar visuals, at least for these versions of the game, I don't think the game looks bad at all. I've heard a lot of people bitch and moan about it looking like a PS3 or 360 title. It's just not true. The game looks totally fine. I could name plenty of other games that look significantly worse than this, but there's really no point in doing that. Although, the last update, the graphics seem to be a hell of a lot more buggy for some reason. So like aiming with the sniper rifle, the reticule is just not there half the time, and I've seen weird, slow rendering of the graphics when you spawn, especially at the start of the game. It just takes fucking forever for things to render. I've also seen artifacting that just happens in random moments. I've even fallen through the floor and got stuck under the map with another player, which has happened to me twice now. I don't know what happened with the last update, but I'm sure these bugs will get addressed in an upcoming patch. At least I would hope. Sound design is fine as well, totally acceptable for a free-to-play game. Again, is it winning any awards? Hell no, but I can't sit here and complain about anything significant regarding either the sound or graphics outside of just the bugs I mentioned. But what is the gameplay like? Well, it's kind of basic if I'm going to be honest with you. Like, it plays almost as if it's like a Call of Duty and Battlefield hybrid, like they had a baby, but the baby can't figure out how to crawl even after 8 months. And I mean that in the sense of Enlisted taking aspects of both games, but making them almost bare bones. Like, this is a very simple game. Like, people should not have any problems playing this, learning the controls, learning how the game works. Basically, if you played literally any other shooter before this, you really shouldn't have a problem picking this one up. The only thing I could say that might cause some problems is, again, the controls for the tank and the plane. They're both kind of slow and sluggish to the point of maybe being frustrating, but there's a learning curve in operating these vehicles, and once you do, they can cause a world of damage to the opposing team. There was one instance where I was piloting a bomber, and I think I got like a 10 multi-kill in a matter of 2 seconds as the enemy was storming an objective. The vehicles take time to master, and I am by far not a master of any of them. The combat itself, there's really not a whole lot I could say about it, other than, again, it feels like any other shooter that's out there already. Enlisted's combat is so bare bones and basic, but at the same time, it's solid and well made for the most part. And let's touch on the realism word for a moment in regards to Enlisted, since I've heard people go back and forth on the subject of Enlisted being realistic or not. While it does have certain realistic aspects to the game, Enlisted plays more like an arcade shooter than really anything else. Kind of like how Battlefield has some realistic elements to the game, but it is by no means a simulator, like Arma or an Operation Flashpoint. And I bring up Battlefield a lot because I've seen a ton of people compare Enlisted to those games, and in my opinion, while Enlisted plays sort of like Battlefield, it's quicker paced overall. Like, you can find and engage in a firefight from a spawn, or really in general, much quicker in Enlisted than you can in Battlefield, and I'm okay with that. What is kind of weird and different about this game is how the squads work. Say your rifleman squad has 4 soldiers in it. 3 of those soldiers will be controlled by bots and not real players. So really, when you think about it, a vast majority of the soldiers in each match are actually bots. Some people may not like this, but it doesn't bother me at all. The bots themselves, however, are a mixed bag. They range from really stupid to flat out ridiculous. For example, I've seen kill cams and even flat out watched enemy bots lock onto players and kill them in incredible fashion. One very specific death that had me nearly rage quit for the first time in like a decade was when I missed a shot, maybe 100 feet away from a bot with a bolt action rifle, and his back was facing me. And as I went to go cycle the bolt, he immediately turned around and headshot me without even trying. So things like that will happen in this game, where the bots just randomly become God mode and will kill you in spontaneous fashion. I hope eventually the developers tweak how the bots work so they behave a little bit more, I guess, realistic to how a typical player would, but I understand that sort of thing is very, very difficult to do and probably cost a ton of money. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of maps that have been released, at least on these versions of the game. I only say that because I find myself playing the same few maps over and over again. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've played on D-Day and Libre, or however you pronounce that. In a recent update, they allowed you to make custom matches or even search for a custom match that includes whatever campaign you want, whatever maps you want, and of course the modes. And, that's all well and good, but finding or creating a custom match, I couldn't find a whole lot of real players. When I played for 2 hours on a custom server that I created, I only had 1 person join, and the rest were filled by bots. And that really concerns me, since it makes me think that the player base of Enlisted isn't as large as I would hope. Unfortunately, I do tend to find myself getting bored of this game after playing 2-3 matches, and part of that is because the matches just take so long, at least in my opinion. I mean, they last 30 minutes. I've had one last about an hour long just for one match. For most others, this probably isn't an issue, but having said that, Enlisted does not offer any game mode that is on the shorter side of things, like a free-for-all mode or a team deathmatch, played on smaller versions of the maps, which is disappointing because honestly, I don't know about you, but sometimes I just want to jump in a game and play a couple 5 to 15 minute matches and call it good, but you don't get that with Enlisted. And the game modes I did play, which there are only 4 of them, are nearly identical to that of what Battlefield offers. You have modes that are basically conquest, domination, and like two versions of Rush. It pains me to say this, but there's simply not enough here. There's a lack of game modes, a lack of maps, and the player progression is, I guess, not painfully slow like in some other games I've played, but slow enough to where I think it'll negatively impact what people think about this game. Now, yes, being that Enlisted is a newish game and it being free to play, there is huge opportunities for the developers to add things and tweak things here and there, and that's all well and good, but I'm reviewing this, or I guess giving my impressions of what I have in front of me right now. It's like when you buy a game day one launch and it's broken beyond belief. Me as a reviewer, it sorta kinda relates to this game. I'm not going to wait however many weeks or months or even a year until the developers fix the game. I'm reviewing what you guys created right now. Like, I remember back in the day when Battlefield 4 first came out, and that game was, oh god, it was serious dog shit on the PS4. And it took, I think, a half a year before the game actually turned out to be a lot of fun to play. But again, half a year, that's too much time. And it's because of that to where I now flat out refuse to buy a game day one or even within the first couple months. I don't want that same experience to happen to me over and over again. It didn't exactly with Enlisted. It's still fun to play, but again, not a whole lot going on. I will say this though, playing Enlisted solo is not a whole lot of fun at all. You play a couple of games, you get bored of it, but in a group or in a party of friends, I could definitely see myself playing this game for a few hours. I mean, fine, you could really say that about most games, but Enlisted, in my opinion, it holds more value than others, simply because of the core gameplay itself not having a whole lot going on. Like the gameplay, when you really look at everything and break it all apart, it's honestly not that spectacular. It's good and enjoyable, yeah, to a point, but this game doesn't, in my eyes, do anything technically better than something like a Battlefield, a Call of Duty, a Red Orchestra, Apex. Say what you want about the games, but there is more to those games, especially when it comes to the gameplay itself, than what we have in something like Enlisted. But I want to stress this. I'm not saying Enlisted is a bad game, a broken game, a shitty game. It's not at all. However, it's not spectacular. And that here is the core problem, because when you consider all of its competition, well, it kind of has to be in order to not only stand out in a good way, but it has to stand out from all the other shooters, especially World War II shooters, in order to keep that player base alive and active and healthy, really. Without that, you end up with like the numerous other games that have a resounding number of players within the first 6 months to a year, and then it just dies a death with no one playing it. And that sucks, because I really do like this game. I just wish there was more to it. That's going to wrap up this first impressions review, whatever you really want to call it. Do I see myself playing this game a year from now? I don't know. Maybe just to see what they've added or taken away or what really has changed, but I don't see myself playing this game long term or even on a regular basis. I would almost argue the idea that I don't see a lot of people returning to this game a year from now in general. I predict, at least on the PS4 and the Xbox One, that the player base is going to drop quite a bit. And I don't see the player base numbers being competitive to that of other free-to-play games on the market like an Apex, a Fortnite, or even Warface. Which again is sad, because I like this game, I really enjoy it. But then I have to question myself, okay, do I like this game because I think it's genuinely fun or enjoyable to play for whatever length of time I choose? Or do I like this game because I'm good at it? Truthfully, I don't really know how to answer that. And with that said, everyone, I thank you all so much for watching. Take care as always, and I will see you next time.